Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me tonight, we have two co-hosts. Grapeviney, good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, Andy. Good evening to you, and hello to all the Demonlanders out there.
And also joining us for his first appearance on the Demonland podcast, we have poster Drunkn 167. Who is the older brother to Melbourne player Declan Keilty. Drunkn, welcome to the Demonland podcast.
Evening, Andy. Thanks for having me along.
Not a problem. Hopefully you'll be able to sort of give us a bit of insight into what a young Demons player sort of goes through, and we'll discuss a bit of that later tonight. But first up, I think we've got to can't talk about anything other than the victory, the great victory we had in the sweltering heat of Tasmania. So, Grapeviney, what did you think of our win? Any surprises?
Not really. Look, it was as good as a win you can get in pre-season. North's pressure wasn't really there, and they're not great team, are they? So it's hard to read too much into it, but the thing that impressed me the most probably overall was the improvement in disposal, particularly by foot. Again, as I say, there wasn't a lot of pressure from North, so you've got to take that into account, but that's something we've had trouble with even without pressure in years gone by. So if there's been if we're going to see that this year, then I'm pretty excited about the year ahead.
Are you suggesting that I really shouldn't have also got a JLT1 tattoo to go with my AFLX tattoo?
I just presumed you'd got it. Look, we're building up a good record against North, a team that we haven't beaten for 20 or 30 years, whatever it is, but we've got them twice so far this pre-season, and hopefully we can do the business when we meet them in the real deal.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? They're really hollow victories until we beat them in the home and away season. A number of people on sort of a few on Demonland and a couple on Facebook sort of were saying, "Oh, we beat them. We've broken our hoodoo." No, we haven't broken the hoodoo. Home and away is the only thing that counts, ladies and gents.
North Melbourne actually tweeted the Melbourne Football Club and said it doesn't count, so they're certainly not counting it, and I don't think we should be either.
Those cheeky bastards. All right, well maybe we'll move along and talk about individual performances in the game. We didn't put a running sheet together before, so hopefully it's not so haphazard. But I'll just throw out some names there. I might I've got a list of our the stats for the game, so I might just go down the stats. Michael Hibbard racked up 27 disposals, was by far our highest possession getter, and he just continues to do all those great things we've come to expect from him. Wasn't the best player on the ground, but he just does his job. And one thing that stood out for me was that amazing bit of play he did on the halfback flank. Jared Waite, I think, had the ball and was trying to sort of get around him, and Hibbard just held his ground and didn't let him pass, and I think ended up getting the ball.
Yeah, it was great.
It was Hibbard's been such a great pickup for the club. He's not the flashiest footballer or the cleanest footballer, but he just, as you said, he just goes in and does his job, and he does it really well.
Yeah, he's a real hard worker.
That his pre-season, they gave him a little bit more room this pre-season to sort of do his own thing, and signs so far seem like it's working.
Yeah, so you see going to see your brother Deck play a lot. You do see a lot of Casey games. Do you go down to pre-season training during the summer a fair bit, or is most of your information from your brother?
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. I went to probably 3 or 4 training sessions this pre-season. Just work commits and stuff make it a bit tricky sometimes. But Yeah, I go to every single game. Have been for the last 4 or 5 years. Can't get enough really watching him play, because just someone, especially when he was playing even like local football and he was just absolutely dominating teams. It's so entertaining and so good to watch him do his thing.
Awesome. Next player we might focus on, Clayton Oliver. Again, probably started a little slowly, but as Clayton Oliver does, he he just keeps plugging away and sort of racks up those possessions. He had 6 tackles. Not the flashiest game, but very Clayton Oliver. When he can.
Well, he's
extract the
also
ball.
racked up a $1,500 fine.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
For thuggish and violent behaviour, which wasn't actually caught by the cameras. Certainly not that I could see.
Are you saying? Have you not seen the video that's in the
I
thread?
have seen the video.
Is that not?
I've studied it as many times as the Kennedy assassination tape.
Yes.
And I cannot, for the life of me, see what's happened there. Look, he's obviously pushed back at some point and put his palm into someone's stomach or chest. But heaven help us if this is the way the game's going.
It is hard to see, but if you look closely in the middle of the pack, he does throw a punch into the stomach of, was it Zeeble who it was? And
closed,
it's
was it a
very,
closed
very
fist,
soft.
was it?
Very soft. So I thought it was pretty harsh, but if that's the direction the AFL want to go this season, as in any and all punches thrown are going to cop a fine, then so be it. They just have to make sure it's consistent throughout the year.
There, you've hit the nail on the head. It's about the consistency, because I can see this being very loosely policed, and sometimes it's which player does it that, and maybe that's just me being a pessimistic Melbourne supporter, but certainly I did see the AFL said a while back that they were going to crack down on the jumper punches and the gut punches, and it seems that the ones that aren't so severe are going to cop a fine like Clayton did, but they better be consistent with it. I've got no problem with them cracking down on it, but you've got to be consistent with it.
Yeah, I think it's just gone a bit too far. Sucker punches are no good, but the push and shove and the jumper punching that happens usually at the start of a game, particularly at siren time, I mean, that's one of the traditions of the game, isn't it? A little bit of how to do.
I had no problem with what Clayton did. The guy pushed him and he turned around and pushed him back. There's no harm coming out of that.
Yep. Anyway, I'm sure we'll return to the match review panel, which is now just Michael Christian, many times this year.
So how
can bank on it.
Let's just talk about that for a sec. How does it work? Is it just one guy looking at things, or does he have a team of people that he's the in the end the thing, or is it just him?
So how the system works, a lot of people don't realise, is there's a table. I don't know if you've seen it, but the table will have all the different grades, as in intentional or non-intentional, and then low to severe intensity. And they'll actually tell you on the table if it's a fine, a couple of weeks, or straight to the tribunal. So him being a solo on the MRP this year, he'll decide the classification, the grade. And if it does go to the tribunal, that's when they sit down with a panel of people. But basically, it's him deciding solely on himself. And I think it might work because he might be a bit more consistent than people arguing with each other throughout the year. But it's a tough job, I tell you what.
It is a tough job.
They must have a team of people going through each game. I dare say it's not him sitting there. So there must be a team of people bringing stuff to his attention, particularly if the umpire doesn't take note of it. So, yeah.
The flaw in the process is that the media ends up playing a big role in which incidents get highlighted and others that don't. So, yes, you're right. There would be a team of people combing through the tapes, but sometimes you get a sense that that the tribunal is sort of acting on media impetus, really, and
They
momentum. Yeah.
Do you remember a time when, if there was an incident, someone got reported or something, they were not allowed to show the footage prior to, like there was sort of a media ban on it from the AFL? Do you recall that sort of probably during the 90s?
I don't, to be honest. But
maybe someone in the chat room can inform us or give us a call. I always forget to throw that out there. If you want to chat with us and you're listening live, call demonland.com/podcast. You can get in there and chat, or give us a call 039016 3666 9016 3666, or Skype us Demonland 31. We'll take your call. All right, moving along. Christian Salem, really liking the role that he's been given this year, given a lot more time in the midfield. I think the position suits him better than on the half back, and he just adds a lot of class to that midfield. What do you think, guys? Grapeviney?
He's a beautiful user of the ball. I guess we've always known that, but he's had the injury and the health issues which have held him back so far. If he can just get a clear run at it and play the year out, he's going to be superb. He's just a classy user of the ball. A real notch above, and one of those players that you love to watch because he's just graceful in his movements.
Drunkn, you would have seen a little bit of him out at Casey. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm exactly the same as Grapeviney. I'm a huge fan of Salem just because he's such a clean user and such a skillful kick by foot. I remember there was a prelim final against Williamstown 2 seasons ago, and he was playing, and I think he ended up having like 17 or 18 disposals in the first quarter, but he was on the wing and he just happened to have about 3 or 4 seconds worth of time where no one was sort of pressuring him, and he managed to absolutely pinpoint this kick straight onto Tim Smith's lead in between a pack of about 12 players. Like, could not have kicked it any more perfectly than he did. If he can bring that stuff consistently to the seniors, he'll be a fantastic player for the club.
Yeah, I think so too. There was a stat that according to Champion Data, Salem attended the second most centre bounces, 21, of any Melbourne player against North Melbourne for the hit-out, just one less than clearance specialist Clayton Oliver. So it really seems like they're giving him that time in the midfield, as much time as you can with all the rotations. So looks like we'll probably see the same thing in JLT too, and hopefully throughout the season.
It's funny use of language, isn't it? Attended centre bounces. That stuck out to me when I read it the first time.
It's like a school. They're taking attendance.
Do you think the players say, will you be attending the centre bounce? Yes, I will. And you? Yes.
I'd never seen that as a stat before, and so I actually like that. It's actually it's a good stat to sort of see that who's, particularly when you've got a lot of rotations going through the midfield. It's an interesting stat to see. I don't know how much it can tell you, but it tells me that they, had the faith in him to play him in the middle, and quite a lot.
Yeah, look, you sort of think which is going to be the sort of the most prominent or dominant starting midfield lineup, and you'd probably think, well, maybe Salem, Oliver and Viney perhaps would be sort of the gun three perhaps going forward.
Well, I'll throw, where does 2 players fit into that? Neil Bullen and Christian Petrarca. Are they more, they'll rotate through it but not being in the main 3?
I'd imagine Christian will spend considerably more time there this year. I'd imagine less so Nibbler. And, Jonesy will still be in there too. And, many would have Dom Tyson attending those centre bounces too. So Look, we're growing a strong and diverse midfield.
So I was actually surprised when I'm looking at the stats here. Christian Petrarca actually had 19 disposals, the same amount as Salem, and Melksham and Neil Bullen, and Harms and Vince had 18. I don't know. I wouldn't have thought he had that watching the game. I didn't think he had that many possessions. I don't know. Maybe that was just me.
I think the interesting thing that's happening with track particularly, people sort of saying, waiting for this breakout game or this breakout season.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, because I think what we're seeing is a real improvement in standards from the second-tier players. You know, we spoke about Nibbler and Harms last week, and they continued that on in the JLT game. And we saw a very even spread of goal kickers on the weekend, and a very even performance across the ground. No one really starred, but everyone kind of did their bit. And I'd prefer that to be the case most weeks rather than relying on track to kick 5 and, and do something sort of, miraculous. Better to sort of share the workload around, I reckon. And if the opposition wants to put time into closing down Christian Petrarca, then by all means, go through Nibbler at half forward.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because you look at the stats, in the disposal stats, and it's very, very even, across the first 19, 20 players. And I think I'd prefer that than having 2 players get, 35 possessions, and then your next ones are, sort of in the mid-teens. So I'm quite happy that we've got sort of the high 20, towards 20 spread across 20 players. I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm curious to know, and I'm sure you've got him queued up to discuss him. I'm curious to know what Dec thought. Not Declan, we don't have Declan on. What Drunkn thinks about Bailey's game on the weekend, Bailey Fritsch, because plenty of us were impressed by what we saw, and Drunkn's certainly seen a lot more of him than you or I have. Yeah,
Drunkn, you want to elaborate on the Fritsch
phenomenon?
Yeah, so a lot of people probably were. I'm a big fan of Bailey. I've sort of been watching him. He played a couple of games for Casey before he went down with that back injury in, 2015, I think. But all of last season, kept a very, very close eye on him. He showed a little glimpse at just the natural ability that he has on the game that weekend. It's just this innate ability to jump in the air for someone who's not really that tall. He just knows how to find the footy, and he does not drop marks. And he has a beautiful, beautiful left foot. I remember last year speaking to a number of the Casey coaches and a few players around. They all knew he was going to be drafted, and they all knew he was going to be a fairly high draft pick, which ended up being second round, which is probably higher than he thought he would go. But his natural ability is something I haven't seen in a long time from technically a small forward. So a few years in the system, and you can bulk up a bit more. I think he's going to be a very powerful forward for the club.
Yeah, I've got.
Is he in the mix? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Do you think he's in the mix for round 1 selection? Notwithstanding, we've still got another JLT game to go. Sorry?
I would be surprised if he doesn't debut round 1.
Yeah, I think the coaches almost sort of said on the weekend that I said it last week. I think he's a shoo-in for it, and after last week's game, I think there's no doubt that he will play round 1. He says he had 11 possessions, 6 marks, kicked 3 goals, 2. We had that funny win, so that could have been more than 3 goals. Plus, he gave away a goal, basically, at the end.
A good mark on the top of the square.
That was a beautiful mark. So, I mean, the guy should have had at least 4, maybe 5 goals for the game. Now, I said that he'll be taking basically Jack Watts' spot in the team for round 1. I mean, it's a different type of players, but he'll effectively be taking that position. And look, this isn't a Jack Watts bashing session. Jack Watts is gone, but I don't think Jack Watts would have kicked 3 or 4 goals in a practice match for us if he was out there on the weekend. But look,
he would have done what he did for Port,
exactly,
which is have 9 possessions and a Joe the Goose out the back.
Yeah, so
it was quintessential Watts. But you're right,
and I don't want to make that a Jack Watts bashing session, because I love the guy. Wish he would have stayed at the club, but he's not. And Bailey's there, and I think we've got a player. Watch this space.
He's very slight, isn't he? I mean,
it doesn't matter,
which is
though.
to be expected, but
it
didn't seem to sort of matter on the weekend, did it?
I don't think he's getting ragdolled or anything, and he can get.
So like, that's a lot of the reason he never came through the tack cut system. It sort of took him a while to get noticed, is because of his small stature. But it does not worry him at all. He can outmark and outmuscle and outmaneuver the best of them.
Well, you saw
he wasn't intimidated at all on the weekend.
No, and one of the goals he kicked was from Petraka, was in the middle, roosted the torp, and he gets it out of the back, got tackled while he was kicking, kicked a beautiful goal. Just a natural. I don't know, big fan.
Yeah. Yep. Watch this space, huh?
It is a watch this space.
He couldn't have done anything more for a first up performance. It was almost as good as he can get for a sort of a debut game.
Yeah, it was good. We won't go through every player. Neil Bullen and Harms had great games, I thought, rotating through the middle. Harms has really sort of taken up to the next level, and hopefully he continues to rise. And I think he'll get a lot more games and game time this year.
Yeah, I think he, Neil Bullen, and Melksham are all benefiting from probably increased confidence about their game. And, as the season wore on last year, they all got better and better. And I think, and this is the case, for Melksham particularly, he really looks like he's just gotten over a hurdle, and he now feels like he belongs. He's part of the team, and we're sort of seeing his best footy coming to the fore now. But I think it also applies to Harms and Nibbler, so... it's probably just, as I say, a bit of a confidence thing too. Between
the 3 of them, they kicked 5 goals, which is fantastic. The midfield getting amongst the goals. Billy Stretch, where do you see him? Had 17 possessions, but certainly wasn't, flashy. But I don't know. Are we expecting more from Billy?
Yeah. So Billy's he's a kind of a strange player, the lack of better terms, because he's not the most skillful, he's not the most silky or anything, but the reason he was drafted is because he just worked so hard on his game to become good enough to be drafted, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He just kept working and working and working until he was good enough to be on an AFL list. And so even though he might have dropped off in form, and a lot of people were sort of starting to say that was the end of him, I think he's the kind of player, having gone through that adversity, that he can keep working and then come back to what he needs to be able to play at senior level.
Yeah, good analysis. I think we'll talk about a few of the backmen in a minute, but I just want to touch on Angus Brayshaw. What position should Angus be playing in? It's a bit of a funny one. No one sort of knows where we should play him. We do know we should be playing him. Guy's talented. I think he played a bit more in defence because Jordan Lewis went down early in the game. Grapevine, what's the Brayshaw issue? Obviously he's still a bit rusty
really got
from
some
the
detractors on Demonland.
He does, and
anyway.
I don't know why, but considering
I'm
what he's been
not one
through,
of them. And you only need to think back to his first season, and just the glimpses that he showed then, and I still see all the same talent now that I saw then. He's had a crappy couple of years. Hopefully that's behind him, but people sort of question his disposal. And
he had a few wayward kicks on the weekend, I must say, but on the whole, I do think he's a good player. But where do you think he should be being played at the moment?
I imagine he'll be part of the midfield rotation, and probably time on a wing or at half back. I know he played a little bit of half forward on occasions in the past couple of years, and so there's a sort of I haven't done a first 22 for round one, but it's going to be difficult squeezing everyone in if you think that Nibbler and Harms are going to play. Bailey Fritsch, will he get a start? But I imagine that when I do sit down to do my 22, I think I'll find a spot for Brayshaw.
All right. Three more players I just want to touch on before we do move on. Max Gawn. I mean, he's just...
Oh, help me.
His tap rucking is just phenomenal. If he continues this way, I see All-Australian, and just... if he gets injured, we're in a bit of trouble. But go ahead, Drunkn. What do you think of the Max?
Yeah, so Maxi was super impressive, I thought, the weekend. Coming up against Goldstein, who admittedly has been down in a bit of form, but still is a very, very strong ruckman.
Still an All-Australian.
Yeah, exactly. And Maxi sort of started slow, but throughout the game, he was just absolutely dominating Goldstein in the ruck. And not only that, was dominating him around the ground. Had that big torp, which was good to see, and a couple of really strong marks.
Yeah, he only had 2 marks. I thought he had more, but I'd like to see him taking a few more marks around the ground.
Well, the 2 marks he did take were strong contested grabs.
Yep, they were.
So, really, we won't talk about what could happen if he goes down with injury, but, oh, geez, if he plays like that this year, he'll sew up that AA ruck spot. Another player before I go to the 2 backmen I want to talk about, Jesse Hogan. He really does play well when he's one out, one-on-one. I
thought he had a really good game.
Yeah.
He ran hard, led well,
7 marks.
took a number of marks. Yep.
3 goals.
In spite of what some people have said on the forum, he's a very good field kick. And he's pretty good with his hands, and for someone his size, he's very good below his knees. So, throw him around and move him around, and put him in the middle and have him up forward.
What did you think of his midfield stints?
Look, they didn't particularly stand out to me on the weekend, but we did it last year, and there were plenty of occasions last year where he got quite a bit of the ball. So I'm quite happy for the midfield stints to continue.
Yeah, I think to get him into the game, if need be, I'm happy for them to do it.
Yeah, I don't even think it needs to be for that reason.
Yeah.
I think it just could be to throw the opposition out.
Yeah, that too.
Send him in for 5 minutes and, So,
big
tick.
So, Jakey Lever, wasn't too flashy, but showed exactly why we got the guy down to the club. I was happy with what I saw, and look, we were playing North Melbourne, so the ball didn't go down there a hell of a lot, but it'd be good to see him play against some of the other teams, and
well, for about half the game we were playing Billy Hartung, it seemed. So, and only Billy, who's getting a fair bit of the ball against us for a while, but. I thought both defenders did pretty well.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Omac afterwards. I thought he played very good game.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, I think he got beaten once or twice, but
he's going to get beaten. Can't expect him to win every single contest, but I thought he did well. His field kicking was good. He was a bit more decisive when he got the ball of where he should go, and I did notice Jake Lever sort of being a bit of a general down back. Like he was sort of pointing where people should be and where people should go. So I'm quite happy with that leadership down the back of Lever.
Yeah, so with Lever, I thought watching him in Adelaide, his biggest strengths were his power and his ability to outmark people. But from what I'm hearing, he's not really the most skillful and he's not the most athletic. But what he is he's just so much smarter than everyone else out in the field. And so he's able to get to every contest because he reads it a second before everyone else can. And so with that ability, it also gives him a really strong leadership ability down there to start being that general, telling everyone where to go, where the ball's going to come in, and that just makes us that much better down the back.
Yeah, I like it. Anyone else we need to focus on? Tommy Bugg was he played all right, kicked 2 goals. Yep. He'll be in the mix, sort of bobbing up there. It's got a lot of versatility and starting to show a little bit of depth, which is a great thing. What do you think is going into the JLT 2? Can you imagine there would be many changes? Looks like Jordan Lewis will be out. You would expect him to be replaced by Jetta if I think he'll be available. Any other changes you guys foresee?
If my memory serves me right, I think the last JLT game last year, we only went in with the 22 squad.
Yeah, I think that's. That's what you have to go in with, 22.
Okay. All right. Well, so there's obviously going to be a couple of players out.
Mm-hmm.
It's
hard to say.
Hard to tell who's going to come in, who's going to come out.
Because I mean, I don't. It doesn't sound like they're going to rest. I mean, unless someone's injured, it doesn't sound like they're going to rest players. So I can't imagine like someone like Oscar McDonald or Jake Lever coming out to give Frosty a go. It doesn't sound like they're doing that. So I don't know.
No, I go with the best 22.
Well, I heard someone reported at training today that Nibbler might have might be under an injury cloud. I don't know if there's been any other reports about that.
Yeah, Demon 77 has just asked that question in the chat room, and that also Jones apparently had a sore back. So if anyone's got any more info and can enlighten us, either call in or post something in the chat room and keep us up to date.
Yeah, that's 0390163666, 0390163666, or Skype us Demonland31. If you call in, maybe I can give away one of our Demonland branded hats. If that'll get anyone calling in. Third caller gets a hat.
It'd be good to see Jack Viney play a game.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll play him before round 1.
Apparently he's in full training now, so it'd be interesting to see.
Possibly we'll play him, maybe give him a half this week.
Doesn't he need a bit of match fitness if he's going to play round 1?
You'd think so. Yeah. And
Tyson, Jetta, and Lewis are really the others that are out.
Did Tyson train today? Is he back in training or still on the injury list?
No, I think he's still in the rehab group.
Yeah. And so when are we playing? We're playing next Thursday, so tomorrow week. I'm playing a St Kilda outfit that is currently losing to Carlton. So
yeah, I'm watching the game.
That'll be interesting. 73-54 at the moment for anyone. Sorry, I hope I didn't spoil that. Yeah, so...
you really think a Demonlander has taped the game to watch it later, a JLT match between Carlton and St Kilda.
I was actually referring to you, Grapeviney. I've had dinners with you before where you've said, don't want to know the score, but I guess that's home and away season, not JLT stuff. So I'm sure there are people that...
I am one of those, to be honest. I am that exact type of person. So
okay. Yeah. This Sunday, I believe, is the Family Day. Am I correct in saying that? So it's a family day. Get down, support the club, and maybe you can get a photo with one of your favourite players.
Just to touch on something that we discussed last week, Andy, which was the women's team being up in the NT, and whether they were going to do community visits. And I noticed on social media that they did do that. They did. It's great actually to see them doing what the boys do when they go up there. Footy is massive in the NT in a way that, footy's massive in Melbourne, obviously, but it's different up there. The kids just go crazy for it, and the women are involved in the game in a way that they're not here. So for the girls to sort of get out there into the community was really good, and I think it's building a really good relationship with the communities up there, and there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent to be had too.
So you mentioned they did what the men do, and I watched them play, and they did what the men did. Certainly the Demons of 2017 did, and lost a game that they probably should have won. Before we could talk about that, actually, we do have a caller calling in. Caller, you're on the air. Turn down your stream. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How you doing?
Good. Hello, Demonland.
I'm good. Who are we talking to?
You're talking to D Days.
D's
nuts, I should say. D's nuts.
D nuts. How you going, mate?
I'm good. I'm calling from sunny Sydney.
Oh, beautiful. Very nice.
Interstater.
Always good to speak to an interstate demon. What would you like to talk about?
My question is really an extension from JLT. I mean, obviously we played against North, and my question really is about what your guys' views are on whether or not Brad Scott and Chris Scott, with their family connection, share some insights with each other, particularly when we've got round one Geelong coming. So what do you guys think about that?
So you're talking about whether they share notes about opposition teams, particularly we've just played North Melbourne. Will I don't know which one's which, but will the North Melbourne one tell the Geelong one some hints about some tips about our how we play? I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really glad you declared you didn't know which one's which either, because I didn't either.
And that's not being racist at all.
The North one is grumpier, and that's Brad.
No, the Geelong one gets quite grumpy too. Watch him when they're not winning.
We haven't seen him when they're at the bottom of the ladder, which is where North are. So, perhaps we have to hold our judgment on that. But I reckon they'd be talking that kind of stuff all the time. I don't know whether they'd do it specifically ahead of a particular game, but you'd imagine that they'd be talking footy all the time whenever they talk, wouldn't they?
Yeah, so people probably realise, but coaching, AFL coaches, it's a very, very close-knit group, and they all constantly talk to each other. I don't know if it's exactly about the exact tactics they're going to use against each other, but I was listening to a podcast that Paul Roos was on, and he was talking about how he would constantly get phone calls from Goodwin and what's the Fremantle, Ross Lyon would always call him up and ask him questions and give him advice. And so I think they would. I think both the Scott brothers would definitely talk to each other.
There you go.
Wow.
And so my second question there is, as a follow-up from, of course, sunny Sydney, What do you think about the ethics of that when you've got, I guess, a professional cadre of coaches who seemingly are, milking their blood for the coach or the club that they're actually supporting? Do you think that there's something ethical there that you might consider should be best resolved through a contract saying that you shall not? Or do you think it's just natural brotherly love that's, sharing that advice between each other?
So they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, where's that effect?
Obviously
Melbourne applied a new tactic this JLT series for the first game that we saw, where we had the good forward press, we reflected back and rebounded really well. You can see all this on replays. That's fine, but certainly the coaches would have better insight.
Yeah, well, look, anyone can watch the games. It's not like they're not available. But yeah, someone at the ground might get a better perspective of it. Look, in terms of a non-disclosure agreement, they're obviously not giving away their own tactics for their own teams. So I don't think you can stop them talking about other teams' tactics. I don't think there's anything, I don't know, from a legal point of view that you can stop them doing that. Only that it might harm themselves, if Geelong win or North Melbourne win more games than Geelong because of information he's passed on, then it could only be harming yourself by giving someone some, tips and tricks against other teams.
Yep.
Fair call. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me jump on and, enjoying the podcast. Have a good time.
Not a problem. I will get in touch with you over the PM and I'll see I can maybe throw a Demonland hat your way to help you in that Sydney sun.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Good on you, D's Nuts.
See you, mate.
It's always good to talk to fellow D's supporters, especially one in Sydney. They're not all bad people up there.
D Oldfart has posted a question for Drunkn in the chat room, and it's just getting back to, are we going to call him the Fritter? Or I've seen him referred to as Fritzl.
Well, what's his...
Bailey.
Maybe Drunkn can tell us what's the name.
Well, he can tell us that and also answer D Oldfart's question, which is, does he need to work on the defensive side of his game?
All right, so I believe that most of the players call him either Bailey or Bales.
Okay.
But
How original.
as supporters last year, we called him Fritter.
Yeah.
That's what we went with. So his defensive game. So that is probably, I remember Goodwin in that press conference said when they asked him about Fritz, how's his chances for a debut, and Goodwin saying he still has a few things he needs to work on to get his game to a senior level. And one of those is definitely his defensive side of the game. He can tackle, but being a smaller bloke, I guess it's a bit harder. It's sort of hard to really talk about when you're not watching him every day at training. But he definitely can work on it, and he will work on it, and he will get better.
Yep. There's no doubt that someone of his sort of size at the moment would find it hard to bring down most of the bull-type players that, he's not going to be able to bring down Ollie Wines, is he? So it's going to take a few years until he's sort of, got a bit of strength. Billy Stretch has the same issue. There's a lot of tackles that don't stick, and that's just due to his size and strength, which no matter how much you work on, you can only get to a certain level.
While we've got Drunkn here, maybe just I remember I asked you in a PM whether you were a D supporter before your brother came to the club, and you told me that no, you weren't. You were a Geelong fan. How big a Geelong fan were you? Were you diehard? Did you go every week or as much as you could? Let us know about that, because now I know you are a Demon through and through. So,
I grew up Geelong supporter. My mum is originally from Geelong, and I had a teddy bear, I think, with a Geelong jumper on it. But I was never diehard. Like, I loved watching my football, but I was never sort of super diehard. I did know all the players on the list. I didn't follow all the news like I do now. Obviously, I'd attend maybe 1 or 2 games a year and watch the majority of the games, especially the finals. But nothing like I am now compared to how I feel about this Melbourne team.
And do you think you'll stay a Demon long after, or will you follow your brother wherever he goes?
Yeah, me and Dec were actually having this conversation one night. He said, "What if I get delisted in some weird, bad fashion? Will you still go for Melbourne?" And I think because I've invested so much time and thought into the team now, it's going to be a bit hard not to be going for them.
That's the correct answer. Now, considering what you've seen of the D's, you've seen a lot of the guys who are up and coming, in the team. Who do you think the next one, besides your brother, will be to sort of break into that, to break into the team? And also, what do you think Dec's chances are?
So, we already talked about it, but obviously Fritsch is probably my number one to come straight into the side and have a decent impact.
After Fritsch, because I reckon he's going to play round 1 and stay in the team for a while.
I really like Dion Johnston. A lot of people on the forums are quite critical of him. But he was still, don't forget, I think pretty sure he was the youngest player on the list last year. And his defensive pressure and forward pressure is as good as I've seen from anybody. If you give him a few more years to really get his game and his abilities underway and he get to a decent body size, I think Johnston will come in and make a really good impact in that small forward.
Interesting.
Yeah. Were you? What do you think of the coaches not going with sort of many young players in the JLT? I always thought the practice games were sort of where you sort of trial these guys, but it seems we're going for best 22 in both games. Sort of makes it hard for those guys to put their hand up early, and they've got to, I guess, do the hard work and show it in the resis. But it's going to be hard to get spots.
Yeah, it definitely is. With Melbourne's list being so strong at the moment, that it's always going to be the case. But I like going with your best team in the preseason. I think more clubs should do it because the guys that are still playing at VFL, they still get a couple of practice matches before the season, and it might look a lot scrappier, but the jump to the VFL to AFL isn't as bad as people think it is because you're still versing. Well, majority of the people you're still versing are AFL-sized people and have the AFL abilities. It's obviously not as quick and not as tough, but I don't mind them having to go through the hard way. Like probably on an easier list, someone like Dec, for example, probably would have had either a senior debut or a pre-season debut already, but because he's at a club which does have a strong list, it's a bit harder.
And just give us an update on where Dec's at and his sort of development, because last year they tried to sort of, and I think this is a theme of Goodwin's generally, is versatility. And they've really tried to inject that into his game, haven't they?
Yeah, so that was probably the main reason why Melbourne drafting was because of his versatility. Because junior footballer, he was a ruck forward. Even coming into local senior football, he was ruck forward. It wasn't until VFL that he really found his niche in defence. So last year, they wanted to sort of push that versatility into him, especially with the a couple of the injuries and stuff, as they sort of were forced to put him in that ruck forward role. But he had a really, really strong second half of the season when he was in that key defensive position. And so I think Melbourne have recognised that and have said, all right, we'll just focus on developing you as a key defender who, if needed, can swing forward for a quarter or pinch hit in the ruck, but really sort of focus on his defensive side.
So he's actually, Declan's on the rookie list. Is that correct?
Yep.
So what, I How does the rookie list work at the moment? What needs to happen for him to be able to play a senior game?
So with the last agreement that went through with the AFLPA, it basically scrapped all the rules regarding rookie lists. They believe in a year or two, rookie lists will be scrapped altogether.
Yep.
So with the exception of Category B rookies, A rookies, there is no restriction on when they can play. So they can get played just as any time as a senior lister.
So Declan could be named round one.
Yeah, not going to happen.
No. I'm saying technically he could. So
Technically.
same way. So he's. I think the four guys we've got on the rookie list are Maynard, Timothy Smith, and Declan and Filipovic. Yeah. All right. So So look, how far off do you think do you think he'll get a game this year? What's providing he does all the right things in the twos. Do you think that he'll get a call up this year at some point?
Yeah, so if you remember, he was named the number one emergency for that Collingwood game, round 23. And he's been improving since over this pre-season. It's only his second, really 1.5. Sort of get a half when he first get drafted. He's really, really started improved himself well above the sort of the level he was at this time last year. So throughout the year, you should see the boys peak at their muscle mass about halfway through the season, and the most will sort of drop down towards the end. Where Declan was able to maintain his muscle mass throughout the whole season, and now he's put on a little bit more. He's doing really good stuff in the gym. They have a running table of who's lifting weights and stuff. And I'm pretty sure he's in the top 3 or top 5 for a number of the categories, say deadlifting and a couple other ones. He's ticking all the right boxes. It's just he's just going to keep trying to find that spot and trying to sort of work harder. Dec's always been a sort of a late bloomer, and so I still reckon he's still got at least a couple of years till he really hits his sort of peak performance ability. So he's just going to sort of, as long as he keeps improving, the club will sort of keep giving him a shot. And as long as he keeps going the start of this year, I think he's got a good chance to play at least a couple of games this season.
Nice.
Must be exciting for the family. Give us an update on another player that you've been very bullish about. That's the Bull himself, Tim Smith.
Yeah.
Where's he at?
Yeah, so I felt my heart tore apart when I heard what happened to Bull. First having a punctured lung from a knee in the back from rants, and then having that foot issue for the last half of the season, because he is a great player and a fantastic person. Met him a few times, and I think I had a beer with him one night. He's just such a great bloke. And we know, because he played those 1.5 games, he kicked those 2 goals in his debut against Geelong. Yeah. So you know that he's got the ability and the size and everything. So I think he might have just integrated back into the main training, I believe, after that foot injury. So if he can play some good games this year, he'll definitely find his way back in somewhere. Because with those 2 games last year, obviously they like him. And so if he can play well, as Goody has said before, he always picks players based on form. And so if he has some really strong form, then he'll be picked.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, certainly a few options around when you consider, we haven't spoken about Joel Smith, Corey Maynard, where does he fit into the picture? There's quite a few players sort of around that fringe that are really going to be pushing for selection, I hope.
Yeah, it's exciting times. It's a good problem to have when you go into selecting a round one team and you're struggling to include players who you would think should definitely get a game. It's a great problem to have, and it's exciting time for the club. Well,
yep.
I think because Grapevine, I know you got to shoot off. I think we'll end it there. Exciting times. I'm not sure what we're going to do next week because I think we're not playing till Thursday next week. So we'll see. Maybe
Can we broadcast live from the game?
Well, it's out at Casey. Grapevine, are you going down to Casey to watch? I'm not sure.
When is it? The Thursday night?
It's Thursday night. I don't think I can make it, so I think I'll watch it comfortably in my lounge room. But hopefully we get a good crowd out there. Are you going down there, Drunkn?
If Declan plays, I'll be going. But at this stage, I think I'll just be sitting on the couch at home watching.
Yes. Well,
fair enough.
Yeah. Look, I've heard that that has improved out at Casey, getting out of the ground. I just remember I went to a practice match there a few years ago. We played the Eagles, it was a number of years ago, and it was impossible getting out of the ground at the end of I think it took us an hour to get out of the car park at the end of the game.
Didn't they wipe us in that game too?
Yeah, I have a feeling that was the game. This was how long ago it is. Was that the game? Was it who got their jaw broken? Was that Sylvia? Can't be that far away.
That was
a long time ago. I think that's the last time I went out there. Yeah.
When you talk about getting out of the car park, someone on the forum the other day was extolling the virtues of Waverley, and that we should somehow move our base once Hawthorn vacated. I mean, you want to talk about getting out of the car park. There are still people trying to get out of the car park from our last match there.
We could never find out.
They're hoping that they'll be home in time for Seven's big league replay.
I think the problem there was we could never find our car. That was the problem.
That took an hour and then another hour to get out.
Yeah.
So.
Fun times.
Yep. We should finish off with a happy birthday to the greatest demon of them all.
Oh, yes.
Who celebrated, was it number 82 during the week?
Yeah, he was number 82. Ronald Dale Barassi celebrated his 82nd birthday. So happy birthday, Ron. The last of the, the real demon legends.
Yep.
Recognisable names. Yeah, so, happy birthday.
Wouldn't it be great for Ron to hand the Premiership Cup over to Jonesy and Jack?
Oh, there's no doubt if we do make a grand final, and getting ahead of myself, he'll be the one presenting if we do win. You'd have to say he's a shoe-in for that.
Absolutely.
What a moment that would be.
Oh, I've got tears in my eyes already. Yeah, well... all right, now I need to calm down. You've got me really excited. So we'll. When you brought up birthdays, I thought you were talking about the upcoming March birthday of Oscar McDonald and our bowling excursion with him.
Bidman's organising that, so he'll be sending out invitations shortly, and there'll be some Demonlanders that probably won't get them, such as Steve the Man Jordan and other harsh critics of Tom's younger brother.
Well, look, I'm really hoping that that Oscar can prove people wrong this year, and I certainly liked what I saw on the weekend. So hope he keeps it up.
He's also still got to get stronger, doesn't he? He's still also pretty slight for a key position player, but as Bidman has reminded us, he's only 22, so plenty of time for that to happen.
Even about that, Oscar is a lot stronger than I think people realise. Maybe it's just his body positioning that needs working on, but from what Declan tells me, he's almost impossible to match up against when they're doing drills. He's just super powerful, got super big legs. It just maybe it's his positioning he needs to work on. Yep.
I'll defer to the experts on that, absolutely.
All right, with that, I think we're going to end the show tonight, and we'll look forward to JLT2 Thursday week, and we'll be back probably after that game to talk about it. Possibly be back next week, but we'll see. Play it by ear. I just want to thank Grapeviney as always, and also to Drunkn 167 for joining us and giving us a great insight into what some of the young guys, from the young guys' perspective around the club. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been great.
Not a problem. Hopefully you will join us again in the future. All right, guys. Not a problem. We will be back at some point in the next 2 weeks. So watch this space. Thank you, and go D's.